Do you want to make a cool system like this? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you how. Okay, so start by just launching a basic base plate, or whatever you want, and getting a gas station. You can build one, or you can just literally build this countertop. But make sure, I would just recommend having a countertop here, otherwise you won't really know where to rob. Inside of this countertop, make sure there's something as well called the rob part. It's transparent, can't be collided with, meaning can't collide false, and then it's also anchored. Now the reason we need this is basically the part where you're actually going to, well, rob. So you can literally make it anything. I could literally just use this random part, but it's not really as good as putting it right front and center like this. And you don't have to call it rob part, but I would just recommend doing it for the sake of the tutorial. Otherwise you might have to, change it a bunch of times when calling it. And yeah, so now we're going to, first of all, go to replicated storage, and we're going to add a remote event and call it robbed, like so. And then inside this rob part now, we're going to add a proximity prompt. And then we're just going to set the hold duration to 3. Now, this hold duration is basically how long you need to hold it before triggering. So, for example, on Jailbreak, you have to hold it for 5 seconds or so. And then you get the money. So that's basically however long you want it before the money. Then set the object text to rob. So this is basically the text that will show up to say what they're actually going to do when they trigger it. Okay, so now we're going to insert a script, a server script, which is the white script here. I'm going to call this trigger robbery. Again, you can call it whatever you like, but this makes the most sense. Start out now by getting your services. So local replicated storage, this is the only one we're going to need for this one, equals to game colon get service replicated storage. And then we're going to go ahead and get the prompt. Let's just go local prompt, so script dot parent dot proximity prompt, and then finally local remote event, which is local robbed event, equals to replicated storage colon wait for child robbed. And lastly, we're just going to define local debounce, so just put local debounce to false. That's all you're going to need really for the code. Now onto the actual code. So we're going to do prompt dot triggered, so when they have officially stopped or finished holding it down, we're going to connect it to a function, and we're going to pass player. So now we're just going to put at the top if debounce, then return. And the reason we do this is called guard clause, and it's basically if debounce is true, then we're going to just return, which will make more sense in a second. And then we're just going to put debounce equals to true below. Alright, now, just simple, we're going to put robbed event, and we're going to fire this for the client. Which is basically just firing that remote event on the client side, which is usually the local scripts. And I'm just going to put player, always put player. If you do not put player in fire client, it will always return an error. So always put player as a value, or as something to send over. Because I used to spend hours trying to figure out what the error was. Turns out I didn't put player in fire client. Now we're going to put task.wait here, and this is your cooldown basically. So how long do you want to wait before allowing them to rob again? So you can set this to anything, but I'm just going to set this 10. And then after this, just put dbounce equals to false. So a quick run through the script. As soon as that prompt has been triggered, we're going to check if there's a debounce. So if debounce is true, which it is here, we're not going to run anything. But if it isn't, if it's false, then we're then going to set it to true. Then we're going to do the robbed event and fire it to the client, pass it through the player. And then we're going to wait 10 seconds and set debounce to false again. So that's basically everything for this script. And we can now head over to the client. So, inside of Starter GUI, insert a Screen GUI. And I'm just going to call it Robbery GUI, but you can call it whatever you like. Then insert a text label. And this is basically the text that's going to come up on the screen when they successfully rob it to show that they got the money. So, we're going to start out by setting the anchor point to 0.5 equals 0.5. You can make this literally anything you want, but I'm just going to make it basic. And you can follow along with mine if you really want to. I'm just going to set the size to 0.5, 0.6, 0, 0.5, 0. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'm just going to say this is your x-axis, so we want to make it 0.6 along the x-axis, and then 0.5 along the y, which is up, in case you want to get into GUIs or anything. Okay, and now we're going to set the background transparency up here to 1. Scale the text, and then I'm just going to set this to a nice little green colour. Let's see what's good. Let's do this. Just increase that a little bit. Okay. Maybe change this to Fredoka 1. And then the text here doesn't really matter because we're going to change it in a bit. I'm just going to put $500. Lastly, call this cash display. And bam. That is everything for the GUI. And then just make sure you set this visible off. Now, before we get to the actual client-side scripting, I should have put this at the start of the video, but it's too late now. Insert a script. I've already got it there. Insert a script into server script service and call it leader stats. Basically the chat script. I'm not even going to label anything. I'm just going to put local players equals to game content service players, and then I'm just going to put players dot player added connect, and then function, and then player. Now local leader stats equals to instance.new. So we're going to create a new instance. And choose folder, just type in speech marks, comma, player, which is going to put it inside of the player. Parent it to the player, basically, more technical terms. And then finally, leader stats.name equals to, now this is important, lowercase l, leader stats. It has to be lowercase or else Roblox will not recognize it as the leader stats, and you will not see it on the leaderboard. Now, next we're going to do local cache equals to instance.new, creating another new instance. In speech marks, put int value or number value if you prefer. Either works. And then we're going to put this inside of leader stats now. And then we're going to do cache.name equals to cache. Now, you do not have to call yours cache. You can call it XP, you can call it gems, you can call it whatever you like. But I'm just going to call mine cache for the sake of the tutorial. And then cache.value here equals to 0. So, when the player joins, basically, I've already done a leader stats tutorial in the past, but I'll do it again. Or a quick run through. Then when they join, we add a leader stats inside of them, called leader stats. And then we add an int value into the leader stats called cache, and then we set the value to 0. Basically, stat script. And I'm sure you probably already know how to do it. So yeah. Okay, now on the client here. we're going to call this rob handler. Insert a local script into the screen UI. Okay, and a local script is basically kind of like blue with a weird little icon in the bottom right. But just look out for local script, it's probably easier. Okay, so now inside of this, we're once again going to get services. However, we're going to get a little bit more now than we have in the old script. So we're going to start off by getting players. Okay, so local players equals to game colon get service, and then players. And then we're going to get replicated storage, of course. And that equals to game colon get service, replicated storage. And then finally, we're going to get sound service. This is completely optional, and I'm not going to do it right now, but it will be used for sound effects. So we'll get into that in a second. So we'll just put here sound service, and I'll do that at the end of the video if you want to add sounds. Okay, now globals. We want to get starters, the robbed event. So the robbed event equals to replicated storage colon wait for child robbed. Then something new here is the cache display, which is obviously the script .parent .cache display. So this text label here. And finally, again with this actually sound service thing, so we're just going to put cache sound. Come back to that later. Okay, right. We just need two values here, and that is local player, which writes a capital L, equals to players dot local player. And then finally local reward equals to 500. This reward is actually what we're going to be giving them. So you can set it to 10,000, they'll get 10,000 when they rob it. So make sure you set this to however much you want to give them. Okay, now moving into the code itself. It's a little bit more complicated than last time. Start out by just doing cache display dot text. This one's the cache display. In speech marks plus space $, then put 2 dots, and it's called concatenating, which is basically adding something onto string. And then put reward, and this will basically do plus $500 whenever it shows. Okay, nice. Okay, so now we're going to do robbed event dot on client event. So when there is an event on the client, so when we fire that client in the other script, there's an event. So when we detect an event, we're going to connect it to a function and no parameters. I'm going to start off just by doing local leader stats, and then we're going to do local leader stats equals to local player colon find first child leader stats lowercase l. So whatever you called it, which should be leader stats, look for that. And then next, and then underneath actually we're going to put if not leader stats, then return. Another guard clause here. It's important because you don't want to end up with no leader stats. This is just avoid errors. Okay, and now we're going to put local cache. So if there is a leader stats, then local cache equals to leader stats colon find first child cache, or again whatever you called it. Make sure you put exactly how it's spelled in these speech marks here. And then just put if not cache, like with the other one, then return. And if you really want, you can just Worn. No leader stats. Found. But I don't think it's necessary. Okay, next we're now going to do cash dot value plus equals to reward. So we're going to do set the cash's value to reward. Or not, sorry, not to reward, but we're going to add on to the cash value, with whatever the rewards value is, which is 500. And then next, we're going to do cash display.visible equals to true. So we're going to ask that to visible. And then we're going to do task.wait 2. This is basically how long you want it to be on the screen for. And then finally, cache display dot visible equals false. So let me get this clear again. And that is your finished script. So if we go ahead and we test it, whoops, spawned on top of it. If we go inside our gas station here, see we've got 0 cash. We come up to this, we hold it down for 3 seconds, and we get plus 500 cash. And then if we try to do it straight after, and it hasn't been 10 seconds, you'll see nothing happens. Well, you can keep trying, and eventually after 10 seconds, it'll come again. So that is basically your working gas station script. Pretty simple here. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Now, if you do want to learn about the sounds, or sorry, if you want to add sounds, then make sure to wait until the end of the video. But if you don't want to add sounds, then that's everything from me for today, and I'll see you guys next week, maybe. Peace. Now, if you did want to do the sounds, bear with me for a second. Go to sound service, and insert a sound, okay? Just click plus sound. And we're going to call this cash sound. Now in the sound ID, make it something that sounds like cash. Whoops. And then sample that. You can just go to the toolbox audio, search for cash. There you go, you get the sound. Now, after this, we're going to go into our Rob handler. And remember I said sound service here. Now what we're going to do is we need local sound service equals to game, get service, sound service. Now, it's important to note you can put this in the workspace if you really want. And sometimes you may think, oh, why does it play for everyone? Well, if you play it from a server script, it will play for everyone. But if you play it from the client script, it will only play for that specific client. So just remember that, because it took me years to figure that out. Okay, now we're going to do local cache sound equals to sound service, wait for child, cache sound. Alright, so now we want to actually play that sound. And it's pretty simple. Just go over here, underneath your visible thing, and then we're going to do cache sound, play. So if you see, if I play here, and I rob it, it will make a sound. So yep, that was pretty much everything for the sounds, and thanks for sticking along. I'll see you guys in the next one.